So Bryson Graham has already made a trade to bring in the center of Nick Claxton. He's also went through the NBA draft, bringing in Dalen Swain and Caleb Wilson to this team, two young, very talented players to this team. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the next step of the Bulls rebuild because the draft is done, which is good, right? The young core has taken shape and it looks good. But now you have to actually have to supplement that young core with some veterans that make sense around them. And I got some names in here that we're going to talk about. Between trade targets and free agent targets, we're talking about Quentin Grimes, Brice Sensabaugh, Luke Kennard, also the recent rumors of John Collins and Norman Powell. We're going to talk about all that, plus more, right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. Yesterday, we talked about trade targets and more so kind of salary dump-off targets for the Chicago Bulls. On today's episode, I want to talk about adding the two things that the Bulls still need for this team. That's shooting, and namely a starting shooting guard if they do not plan to start Dalen Swain as a rookie. And then also some more big man depth. Right now, Nick Claxton, he was traded for. Most likely he's going to be the starter. We're going to talk about some people that could come in and push him for that, or some people that could come in and back him up. And so let's start off. Well, I want to start off with the shooting guards. We'll start about the free agent target of shooting guards. And there's two on here that make a lot of sense, and some that make sense to varying degrees too. So the number one option for me is Quentin Grimes. And this reportedly because Quentin Grimes is going to be available for around the mid-level exception, which the Bulls do have. That's about $15 million is mid-level exception money, right? I think that you look at him, a strong two-way fit for this Chicago Bulls team. I also think last year with a little bit of a down year with the Philadelphia 76ers, you can. That's why you can get him for the mid-level exception. He took a shot on himself. He took a bet on himself last year and decided to play on the qualifying offer. And the results are still solid. 13 points per game on 45% shooting from the field, a down year shooting three from him, 33% shooting from the three from him, but he also chipped in 3.6 rebounds, 3 assists per game as well. Wow, only 1.8 turnovers per game and almost a steal per game. We look at Quentin Grimes' career averages, 11 points per game on 44% shooting, a 36% career three-point shooter, which I really like for him, the 2 rebounds, 2 assists, those type of things. Quentin Grimes is kind of the perfect player that you look at and see that is low money, right? So not hugely cost effective. The fact that he can start for you, the fact that he can also come off the bench, right? The majority of his career, he's come off the bench. He's only started 146 out of 318 games. So I think even if he had the chance of winning the starting position, even if it's briefly, he'd come here and take that. So I think that Quentin Grimes is a really good option here for the Chicago Bulls in free agency. I like him a lot because of the two-way play. Again, he's not a lockdown defender by any stretch, but he is a defender that in the framework of team defense, he can be a really good team defender, and he's a solid enough on-ball defender and doesn't get completely blown up in pick and roll either, like a lot of our players do right now. I like Quentin Grimes a lot. I like the option of him being here a lot. I think he would be my number one free agent target. Next up, Norman Powell. Now, HoopsHype did report that the Bulls are one of the teams expected to be interested in Norman Powell. He's going to be a little bit more expensive than Quentin Grimes. He's going to range reportedly between $15 and $22 million is the expected range for him in free agency. Now, many will know the Bulls have $33 million left in free agent spending power. So that cuts a lot into that, right? That's the majority of it. Now, because you do have bird rights on Nick Richards and Zach Collins, you can bring those guys back as bigs if you want to. You can take a shot on like a Robert Williams III and a Zach Collins. I know they're both injury prone. You can do something like that if you wanted to go after Norman Powell. I like Norman Powell because career-wise, three-point shooting-wise, he's really good. Now, he's had a breakout over the last couple of years, and the question is he looking to get paid? Keep in mind, he's a 33-year-old player. I actually like that for the Bulls because, his time, he has more time behind him than he does in front of him either way, right? But the last 2 years, he's averaged over 21 points per game in both those 2 years. He shot the ball 41% from the field in 24-25, from the three-point line, and 38% from the three-point line in 2025-26. He's a career 39% three-point shooter. I like that. When you look at his career as well, he averages 14 points off 10 shots. He's not a player that needs the ball a whole lot to be effective. Even last year, 15 shots to get 21 points. That's really good efficiency from the field, 47% overall from the field. So I like that with Norman Powell, and I think he'd be a really nice option here for the Chicago Bulls. Just a little bit more expensive, but he's a veteran bucket getter. I think if the Bulls want a proven scorer, it's there. He doesn't fit the timeline, but then again, we're not necessarily looking for an amazing timeline fit with all these guys because the hope is that Dalen Swain is going to eventually take that over, right? And then, of course, you have the guys that are kind of more on the lower end of that. Luke Kennard is another option for the Bulls. The elite shoot. He brings elite shooting that you just can't overlook. Not a defensive answer, but he does fix a lot of spacing for the Chicago Bulls, when he's out there on there. So I like that a lot. Another guy that's possible is Landry Shamet as well. He's going to be on the taxpayer mid-level exception, so he's going to be a little bit lower cost than that. Again, not really a starter, right? But a guy that can play with you for sure. He definitely brings a spacing, and he's a useful bench piece as well. So if you're looking at it, kind of my favorite free agent targets are going to be Quentin Grimes and Norman Powell, and then Luke Kennard shortly behind those guys. I think all fit the mold for the Chicago Bulls pretty well, right? But that's not all. Like, there also are trade targets that are out there, realistic trade targets. So the number of trade targets that are out there at the shooting guard position, and we don't know for sure if he's going to be available or not, but Brice Sensabaugh. Now, one of the guys brought this up in the voicemail, and I'm going to dive into this because I didn't even think about Sensabaugh, mainly because of his youth and the fact that he's on a Utah Jazz team that is by all projections is going to move from tanking to actually trying to compete. And this is a young kid at 22 years old that's already shown himself to be a pretty damn good shooter and player, right? Last year, he averaged 15 points per game, which is really good, 14.9, so 15 points per game on 46% shooting and 36% from the three-point line. The season before that, he shot 42%. He's a career 38% three-point shooter, and he's 22 years old. Now, some would ask, why would the Utah Jazz even be interested in trading Brice Sensabaugh? And I think it would come down, if they are, again, this is ours, that Utah now has a very crowded wing guard rotation. That's where Utah is. Their wing guard rotation has become extremely crowded, almost as crowded as our forward rotation is. So I think when you look at them, Keontae George is going to be ahead of Brice. Darren Peterson, definitely going to be ahead of Brice. They still got Isaiah Collier there. Ace Bailey's going to play some minutes at the 2 and the 3, right? So you have that. And so I think that Brice Sensabaugh could be a guy that could be made available out there. Now, I'm not saying for sure, but the Bulls should call. If you can get a 22-year-old, 38% three-point shooter to add to this young core, it almost becomes off too perfect, right? When you look at that. So I think now, if you look at the opportunity that he would have with the Bulls to get back to what he wanted to before, I think he has 2 more years left or 1 more year left before he becomes a restricted free agent. And the Utah Jazz may just not want to even deal with his restricted free agency, what comes at the end of the season. And the Bulls, who, not under Bryson Graham, but we've shown the ability to take on players in the last year and basically tell them to go out there and prove something, and then we have their restricted free agent right. So there you go on that one. Another guy is AJ Green with the Bucks, right? The Bucks are in a full rebuild after the Giannis breakup. This is a low-usage shooter that does exactly what the Chicago Bulls would need off the bench as far as a shooter and a spacer. In regards to that, I really like that part of it. I think that AJ Green's somebody that could work and probably not have to trade a whole lot to get it, but Milwaukee is an asset allocation mode, so maybe the asking price would be a little bit higher, but I definitely would make a call on AJ Green. Next up, Jordan Hawkins with the Pelicans. We don't know what's going to happen with Trey Murphy. If Trey Murphy is traded, they're probably going to hold on to him, but I will say this, is that much like the situation with the Jazz, their situation in their backcourt and wing is starting to become really, really crowded. And so if you can get in there and try to get Jordan Hawkins from them. Now, this is a player that's still very raw, 6'5", 24 pounds. 24 years old, but he's a career 35-ish three-point shooter. Does have some upside. Not last season on average 5.1 points. The season before that, he did average 10 points, and he did that off 9 shots per game, so only 37% from the field. So not a very efficient player. But again, somebody if you wanted to take a shot at, not that I'm hugely enamored with him, but he is somebody that the Bulls could take a look at. So that's really the shooting guards that I personally feel are going to be out there available this offseason for the Bulls in the trade market and in free agency. Of course, other names could pop up. But the Bulls have another position that they also need to fill between now and the start of the season, and that's added big man depth. Yes, we traded for Nick Claxton. Yes, we have Jalen Smith, who can play some 5, but we've seen it. He's been better at the 4, at least in his time here. And while I think the Bulls, may look at low-cost options, there are some free agent names that are available. Of course, Walker Kessler. We've talked about Walker Kessler. I don't think he's in the range of the Bulls no more. The Bulls are even though the Utah Jazz and him seem far apart on a deal, if the Bulls wanted to try to work out and sign and trade, maybe. But for the nature of this conversation, because we've talked about Walker Kessler so much, everybody knows Walker Kessler. You know what he brings. You know that. I think the trade in Nick Claxton makes the Walker Kessler acquisition a little bit less. But then you have other names. One of the names that was mentioned as well with Norman Powell is John Collins, around 16 plus million. He's a lob threat, a stretch option in the front court, but he's more of a 4 than a 5 to me personally, and he's a bit of a head case and not somebody that I necessarily want on the Chicago Bulls. That leads you to 2 players that I think really stand out here. Robert Williams, and I know that people are talking about the health and all that, and I get you, you're right. But the fact that you have your starter now, Nick Claxton, I wouldn't mind taking a shot on a combination of Robert Williams and Zach Collins to both be the backup centers because they bring something different. But also Robert Williams brings the style. When he's healthy, we know, but there's a huge injury risk there. But I like Robert Williams for what he does as a center. He knows exactly where his strengths are. He doesn't need the ball a lot on offense. He just goes out there, plays defense, and can live off lobs. But then there's another guy out there, Mo Wagner. And the reason why I think that Mo Wagner is a possibility is that the Orlando Magic seem to be going in a different direction. He's an offensive big who brings energy. He brings passing. He's not really a rim protector, right? So you're not necessarily looking at him to keep up the same style of players like a Nick Claxton does for this team. But I do think you're looking at somebody who can be a solid backup big. I think his injury last year that he came back from is going to keep his market a little bit lower. I think his market's going to be a little bit lower and make him easier to acquire. And the stats don't pop. The stats don't jump out the stat sheet. Last year was only 6.9 points, so 7 points and 3 rebounds. But if you look at the year before that, where he played 30 games, he came off the bench in every game but one. He averaged 18 minutes. He averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds per game in that time period, and 1.4 assists. Again, a low-cost, functional big man that just knows his job. Those are players that I like at this position because we're betting on Nick Claxton to be the starter here, so I'm not mad at that one at all. Let's flip it and look at some trade targets, right? One of the trade targets is a teammate of Mo Wagner, and that's Goga Bitadze. Reportedly, he could be available because of the front court depth, and he's been mentioned as a trade replacement for teams before. Now, he does bring size, he brings rim protection, and he's a lot cheaper than Walker Kessler, and he brings some of the same style of things when it comes down to that. I like Goga Bitadze, but I do think the Magic are going to want a pretty price for him. And it may even be that they want a Jalen Smith, a big that can actually stretch the floor, to add a different one to try to get Goga Bitadze. So keep that in mind. Another guy is a guy that we talked a lot about last season, and that's Yves Missi. Now, I do think that this is going to determine on what New Orleans wants. I think the last thing that I read is that they want at least one first-round pick for him. But this is a young, athletic, rim-running big that still has upside, a lot of upside, actually. And he's not as polished with his game. Now, I have my questions on if Yves Missi can be an everyday starter center, but as a backup behind Nick Claxton while you find your next center of the future, I'm not mad at that. I think Yves Missi is a really good trade option. It's just if Bryson Graham wants to pay that price, and it may come down to if it does cost a first round pick, if he looks at it and says, hey, the first round next year the draft class next year isn't supposed to be the best. Maybe we are not going to be able to get somebody as good as Yves Missi, and we'd be willing to give that up. So I think that's the option there. Of course, there's some other options that you can mention as well. Like, saw something about Wendell Carter. I don't want him back in a Bulls uniform, though. But I think when you look at this, the Bulls' plan is, right, I think that if you want Brice Sensabaugh and Quentin Grimes should be the 2 guys that, whether at trade targets or free agents, that you look at. The upside and the value swing on those guys are really good. If you look at the big man part of it, I'm looking at, again, Robert Williams, Mo Wagner are definitely guys that I take a look at in this class. And like I said, I know not everybody's going to be on Robert Williams because of the injury thing, and I understand it. But he is a guy that I would take a look at for sure if I'm the Chicago Bulls. But let me know what you guys think. Between the big and the guards, which ones would you target for the Chicago Bulls? All right, it is Sunday. That means it is mailbag day. Let's go ahead and get into these voicemails. This one's from Brandon L. Jet.
This press conference, it brought back some memories with Derrick Rose. Why can't he be MVP? So I like the kid. I like his confidence. I like the dog in him and whatnot. The other draft pick with Swain, I was not expecting that, but I'm not mad at the pick either. The kid's a slancer, a high flyer, and I think with the right coaching and grooming, he can be a solid asset to the team. As far as the second round picks, not worried about that. I trust Bryson Graham as far as that, as well as the coach staff, as well as the front office about that. But the one question that I had for you, Haize, is in regards to the front office. Do you think that now that the draft is over, as well as the coach has been picked, do you think he's going to add more staff members up in his office up front? All of us know about him, as well as his directorate director of player development with AC Law. Do you think he's going to add any more people to his office up front? Any thoughts on that? Is there anybody that you think would even try to come to the organization? Later on, I'm going to add another voicemail to think about who is Tiago going to add as far as assistant coaches as well as staff members for his team. Love to hear your thoughts. Peace.
Now, Jet, the start of your voicemail was a bit off. Like I couldn't, like it, you were coming in and out. So, like for those that like, I did have to like it was chopped up. But I think the Caleb Wilson Rookie of the Year talk, reminding you of the Derrick Rose MVP thing. Yeah, I feel that, and it's there, right? And I think that overall, like Caleb Wilson's confidence in himself, but also the confidence that he wants to make this team better, definitely stand out. And it's a big reason why I'm glad he's here in the Chicago Bulls uniform. And let's see what's going to happen. As far as the staff, right? I think there'll probably be more staff like scouts and stuff like that at it. But I think Bryson has built his core around him. I think we have our primary decision makers. I don't think you're going to see a lot of other staff added to this team. That's just my personal opinion. And as far as Tiago Splitter, even I know you said you were going to call later on that. I think they're already here. I think Wes Unseld and Dan Craig are both probably staying on under Tiago Splitter, and maybe he makes another hire outside of that. But we'll see, right? All right, let's get into this next voicemail, man. This one's from first-time caller Janet.
Hey, Haize, this is Janet in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My husband and I listen to your Bulls coverage every day. We appreciate all the work you put in to give us awesome Bulls coverage. I had a question for you. I don't know if you caught the interview that Bryson Graham and Tiago Splitter did with Waddle and Sylvie. If you did or if you didn't, then you go check it out. There were a couple of points during the interview that I want to get your take on. The first one was when Bryson was kind of pushed about selling off the second picks. And, I liked his explanation. It made sense, but I know it's not settling well with everybody. Where he really, he pushed back and he borderline got defensive with them, I thought, when he was talking about, well, how many times have you seen second round picks work out, and translate into legit NBA players. To me, that just sends the signal that they almost like they just think second round picks are trash. And I wonder if it struck you the same way. Like, and is that the right message to be sending? And then on the flip side, if that's the case, then why did you pick up the two undrafted guys? So give me your take on that part of the interview. It just kind of seemed a little bit weird that it was almost as if he was just throwing out the second round picks like, well, they just don't matter. So let me know what you thought about that. Secondly, towards the end of the interview, they asked Tiago about Noah Essingay, and it certainly didn't feel like he gave him a vote of confidence. He talked about how he had just met him that day and that he's got a lot of work to do. And just the body language and everything I was trying to read, in his answer, it did not feel like there's a big vote of confidence behind Noah. I wonder if it struck you the same way, and based on your analysis of what you see, how they're building the team, does it feel like Noah might not be part of this team going forward? I know he's a project, he has got a long way to go for sure, but the answer just seemed a little more negative than I expected it to be. So give me your thoughts on that as well. Thanks again for all your awesome coverage. Really enjoy it. Take care.
I loved Bryson Graham's reasoning for second round picks. I know that people wanted to see Bryson Graham take players just to take them. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, just to take them. But if there are players that he didn't believe in, then why take them? And somebody said, in the live stream yesterday was like, well, if you believe in him that much, take him at 38. But it's like, why take him at 38 if you know you can get them undrafted? Why? Right? People just wanted to see them take the picks. And so if you would have, so for some people, if they would have got, for example, Awaka, right? Toby Awaka, and they would have just drafted him at 38, people would have been like, oh, cool, he took somebody at 38, rather than it's the same player. You just got him as an undrafted free agent. But I do think that the way that you take it, I didn't take that. I don't think that they don't believe in second round picks. I think that Bryson Graham, as a talent evaluator, looked at the talent that was left on the board and realized these aren't guys that are on our board. I don't think that there was an indictment on the second round as a whole. I think it was an indictment on the players that were left in that specific second round, personally. As far as UDFAs, man, like I said, why draft them if you know you can get them as UDFAs? That's just the way that I view it, right? As far as the Noah thing, I wouldn't really read into the Noah stuff either. I mean, you didn't see Noah play. Like, it's easier for somebody who wasn't with the organization to have a take on either Leonard Miller and Monas Buzelis or Josh Giddey because they played. Noah didn't play. So I think that that's the thing, is that if Noah would have played, he would have a take on them. So I don't read that as they're down on Noah or anything like that. They didn't get to see Noah play. They weren't in those practices. They weren't in probably watching the G League. Tiago Splitter had his own team to manage. He wasn't watching the G League games that Noah Essengate played. So that's just the way that I took that, Janet. But let me know what you guys feel down below. Let's get into this next one, man. This one's from the 312.
Haize, what's good, my G? This nonfiction from E-Dub, No Love, Southside Chicago. Man, I just want to give you your props, Joe. You be standing on major sports business. So props to you and to the whole fam, the Cognac boys, to Pat, man. Y'all brothers representing. But look, here go the situation in the demonstration. Bulls did a great job. They did a very good job. Let me fall back on the great. They did a very good job as far as the draft. Prior to the draft, grabbing what's my man Nick Claxton from the Nets, and that was a smooth move. They got them a rim runner, a defensive presence, finally in the paint. Man, Boots couldn't even jump over a dollar bill. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how he was getting them double doubles, but nevertheless, dude out of here. P-Dub, Pat Williams, man, they need to go ahead and just get dude a one-way ticket somewhere down there at the Greyhound, bro. Dude washed. He's trash. But nevertheless, I'm feeling the 10-day, the two-way player. What's the little brother name? The undrafted free agent. Those two guards. I'm feeling both of them. I ain't gonna sit down and got the notes in front of me because it's my first time calling, so next time I'll be well prepared. I ain't trying to hold you. But yeah, I just want to give the Chicago Bulls front office, the new front office, they props. They did a very good job in a very short period of time. Now we got Coach T. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. Splitter is definitely a great addition. We got nice vibes, brand new energy in the locker room now, and that's what's up. I ain't no Giddey fan. You know what I'm saying? Dude need to be a better help defender, okay? You know, he need to guard the pick and roll better, all right? Be improved on his outside, Jay. But it's gonna be lit to see my man on fast breaks and, you know, creating new offensive sets with the new pieces to the offense. I mean, he got 4 new players already or more, you know what I'm saying? Not including Matters, Buzelis in the star lineup. So, man, keep doing what you doing, melanated copper color skin brother. Keep doing what the fuck you doing, man. You represent, man, I'm digging the gear. Pause, no homo. Man, but, man, is there any links? Because I ain't trying to be wearing what you wearing, but, you know, I'm born and raised in the city, so I ain't living there no more, but I ain't trying to have the same shit on Haize rocking. But, yo, the gear be off the chain, bro. Your knowledge be off the chain, and I'll be enjoying when you start roasting the ignorant little niggas. I mean, people. I probably should have said that. But, all right, bro, it been one. All right, peace.
First of all, y'all got to stop calling with them long-ass nicknames. Don't nobody call y'all those long-ass nicknames. Stop trying to use handles on the mailbag. Just use your name. We ain't the Fed. You can say your actual name here. You ain't got to have all this extra shit. Like, Or if you're going to use a nickname, make it simple. It's Haize. That's it. Haize. That's it. It's not Haize, King of the South Side. Like, it's not like, what do y'all be doing, man? It is Chicago humor. But with that said, Nick Claxton definitely was a solid move for the Chicago Bulls. And I think that, you can make it a great acquisition if he gets back to the play where he was a defensive player of the year candidate. If he gets back to that level of play, it's an absolute steal for the Chicago Bulls, right? And the Bulls generally do feel like there is a direction now. And I like that. I love the direction that we're going so far, and that it does feel like we have people that have vision now back running this team. As far as Giddey, I don't think Giddey was ever going to be a plus defender. I think that, that's what, but you look at it, they've added defense around him. Like, there's defense at almost, like, let's just say Dalen Swain's going to start now. Dalen Swain, solid defender. Monas Buzelis, growing as a defender. Caleb Wilson, defense is probably going to be where he makes the name for himself initially. And then Nick Claxton, definitely defensive-minded player. So when you do stuff like that, that's what's going to help. Now, he has made steps as a defender for sure. As an on-ball defender, he still gets caught up in pick and roll. But I think now that you've added the defense around Josh Giddey, it's going to allow Tiago and Bryson Graham to evaluate Josh Giddey and say, all right, we got defense around him now. Now let's see how limiting this is in our build now that he has defense around him. And we'll see. Let's get into this last voicemail, man. This one is from Mello.
What's going on, Haize? It's Mello. We're just going to touch base real quick with some of the stuff that I've been looking at on here. First, the draft. Love the draft. You kind of called it with the Swain situation. You're the only one. I mean, there's a few other people that I saw that was mocking him to the Bulls, but you're the one that I first actually heard somebody say something about, him. And he's going to be good. And he's kind of the reason why I made the call, because we know Wilson is going to come in and be who he is. I said, but him, the other day when you mentioned one of the guys that the Bulls could possibly take on a contract of, or you mentioned DeJounte Murray, if he comes over, if they make a move to get him, because he only has 1 year left on his deal, and a lot of these dudes, they go hard on that contract year. If he comes over and balls out and swing, like you said, can learn from him, because he likes to attack. He's not that great of a shooter. I'm talking about Murray, just like Swain is, but they both can handle the ball, get into the lane, and they both play defense. So if he can get a year, like you were saying, sitting behind Murray, to be able to learn a little bit more, get his jump shot going a little bit more, maybe work with some people to become a better shooter after this first year, and then be able to move into the starting lineup that way. And we'll be able to get a lot out of Murray because he's in a contract year. And I think he's 29, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be looking to really ball out so that way he can get another contract going into his 30s. You know what I'm saying? So if he comes in and plays good for the Bulls, that's a plus, because now with this whole situation with the lottery and everything like that, the better you are, the higher the chances that you get a higher pick. That'll help the Bulls out too. Okay, but I like the Quentin Grimes situation too. If they're not able to make that, I think Grimes would be perfect. He's not going to cost a lot of money. He shouldn't cost a lot of money. And he's somebody that can come in. He can be a 3-and-D guy. He can play good defense, shoot the three. Not going to take up a lot of money, not going to take up a lot of minutes. But also I want to see if there was anybody else, like in free agency, as far as maybe another center, if we lose people who we would look after, because I don't really know anybody else that's out there. So I figure, let me ask you. All right, man. Look like Bryson Graham doing his thing. Looking forward to free agency in the season. T-Red, talk to you soon.
Yeah, Swain wasn't the favorite to go to the Bulls, right? But I understand the pick of Dalen Swain more every day, right? I think there's just what he brings as far as upside, scoring-wise. People forget he's younger than Cameron Carr, like at 20 years old. Dalen Swain has tons of upside in what he's already accomplished and what his age is. There's tons of upside there in Swain. Now, as far as DeJounte Murray, like I said, I wouldn't hate DeJounte Murray acquisition at all. I wouldn't say that it's perfect, but I do think as somebody who has played in the backcourt with another point guard before, can shoot the three, is a decent defender as well, you can make it work for a year, right? If you're going to take on that contract. Again, not perfect. I do think Quentin Grimes is still my favorite target, as I said. As far as centers, I covered that earlier in the episode. But that's going to do it for today, y'all. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. Everybody who left a voicemail, thank you guys for supporting the channel as you do. As I always say, you guys know you're the lifeblood of this channel. The Bulls have made some interesting moves already, but now comes the part to see how serious they get about trying to build a complete roster. Like I've said before, everything isn't going to get fixed in one offseason. We're going to have something that's lacking on this team, but we'll see. Can the Bulls add shooting? Do they add another big? Do they take an upside swing on somebody like Brice Sensabaugh? Like, we'll see what they end up doing. Let me know your guys' thoughts on all that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Breaks